but the amount of carbon dioxide that we are generating at this point requires 1.7 times the Earth to absorb. So we cannot cross the carrying capacity of the Earth. That development should be sustainable. The benefits of the development should be equitably distributed. Unfortunately, the economic policies that we are following are increasing the gap between the rich and the poor.
I welcome all of you to this webinar, and you know very well that today Sandeep Pandey ji is with us, and he would be speaking on ecology, social justice, and the rights of marginalized. So first of all, let me briefly introduce Sandeep Pandey ji. Sandeep Pandey ji is activist, a scholar, and General Secretary of the Socialist Party of India. He has also received Magsaysay Award. But the most important thing is that Sandeep Pandey ji works on the ground. He is a grassroots activist. He has worked in the field of education, right to information. He has worked for the rights of Adivasi community, and also his party, the Socialist Party of India, has its ideology principle that ecological balance and the rights of people, these are very, very fundamental issues. And green politics is also very close to Socialist Party. And you have to also keep in mind that the Socialist Party in India was heavily influenced by Ram Manohar Lohia, and Lohia believed in decentralized economy. And we have already studied James Scott, and he is very critical of big planning. So Sandeep Pandey ji is fighting for the rights of people, sustainable development, ecological balance. These are more important than big cities, big dam, big projects. So Sandeep ji would be talking about his experience, his fight. And most of the students in my class, they are from science background. And I got an opportunity to teach ecology and environmental studies from social science perspective. So I am trying my best to sensitize them, to tell them about how the marginalized communities are fighting for their rights, and how big companies, the policy makers sitting in Delhi and elsewhere, they have less concern for the rights of the people. Sandeep ji would be speaking for 10 or 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and after that you can ask your question. And now I must keep myself away from you and him. Sir, now the stage is yours.
Dhanyawad. So, dear friends, I'm very happy to have this chance to interact with you. I will be sharing two experiences, of my involvement with ecological movements. So the first was, movement against a Coca-Cola plant in Varanasi, in a village called Mehdiganj, which is between Varanasi and Allahabad. And the movement was inspired by a similar movement against a Coca-Cola plant in Kerala, in Plachimada, which was closed because of people's movement. But in Kerala, the panchayats have more powers. They can, deny permission to a plant which is set up in the panchayat. In fact, the panchayat had to first give a license for this plant to get started. But panchayats are not so empowered in Uttar Pradesh, and we had a difficult time. So there was a people's movement, and in 2003 and 2004, we went to jail 2 times. The main issues were the depletion of groundwater table, because the Coca-Cola plant, as you would realize, it relies heavily on water. I mean, 80 to 90% of the soft drink is actually water. And then these companies, Coke, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi, which are the two, largest multinational giants, from the United States, who are in the business of soft drinks, and they are also now selling bottled water under the brand name of Kinley and Aquafina, respectively. I mean, Kinley belongs to Coca-Cola, and Aquafina belongs to Pepsi. Now, we thought that this was very strange because water is something which is a fundamental right and it should not be sold. It is a common property, and people have right over it. It is a natural resource. And our government, which doesn't allow farmers 1.5 times the cost of their production as their value of the product, allows Coca-Cola and Pepsi to sell these products at 10 to 20 times the profit. So the main issue was depletion of groundwater table. The groundwater table at Mehdiganj had gone down, quite significantly, and the farmers were not only facing the problem of depletion of water table, the quality of water had also gone down because the sludge of this plant was found to have. It is very interesting that none of the Indian scientific or technological institutions were willing to test the sludge coming out of Coca-Cola plant. Ultimately, BBC had to take it to England, where the University of Exeter had an arrangement with Greenpeace. They would do tests for them, and they tested and found that the sludge from Plachimada plant contained cadmium, chromium, and lead. Now, cadmium and chromium are the carcinogens, and lead impedes the mental growth of children. So you can imagine how dangerous these things are, and therefore the quality of water was also going down. And of course, the issue of pesticides in the soft drink was there, but that is of course a matter of concern for people who drink these soft drinks. Large population of our country, I think, is not in the habit of drinking soft drinks. They still rely on a lot of traditional drinks, and the fourth issue was that it was displacing the market of local drinks. Local drinks would include fruit drinks, sugarcane juice, matha, sattu, lassi, and bale sharbat, a number of things. So we ran a movement, and we wanted this plant to close. It did not close because of our movement, like in the Plachimada, but ultimately in 2014, when the BJP government came to power, just before that, the Pollution Control Board of Uttar Pradesh found that the plant had increased its production capacity but was showing the same amount of sludge as earlier, and then they withdrew the no objection certificate to this plant and ordered it to close down. However, after Mr. Modi came to power, the company went to NGT and said that the decision on the closure of the plant should also be taken in concurrence with the Central Groundwater Board. And the Central Groundwater, they said that Pollution Control Board cannot be the sole authority. But the Central Groundwater Board was not willing to say anything, and the company said, we are suffering losses because of the order of closure. Therefore, we should be allowed to operate until the Central Groundwater Board takes a decision. And therefore, they restarted the operations. But ultimately, I think it was not financially viable for them, and therefore they did close the plant. This is the second plant that we were able to close in North India. The other plant was on the border of UP and Bihar, in Balia district of UP. It was meant to supply Coca-Cola to Bihar. It was located in a village called Sihachawar. The advantage that we had in Bihar, in Sihachawar, Balia, as opposed to Mehdiganj, Varanasi, was that here the panchayat president, a Dalit lady, was with us. And here the company, look at how unscrupulous these companies are. They had bought two pieces of land on two sides of a road, and then they wanted to take over the road. It was a panchayat road, not a highway, and they wanted to build a big campus. So we went there and we performed shramdan on this road to reclaim it on behalf of the panchayat. The panchayat president was with us, and therefore it was the government of Mulayam Singh, and the revenue minister was Mr. Ambika Chaudhary, who happens to be from this constituency in Balia. And we spoke to him, and we said that the police should not arrive when we perform this act, because repeatedly we were seeing that Coca-Cola was using the police for its protection. And therefore, we performed this shramdan, and then the Coca-Cola realized that it would be very difficult to operate, and they closed this plant. This was a franchisee plant. The plant in Varanasi was directly being run by them. Both these plants are closed. So, and the Plachimada is of course closed, but still there are more than 90. The last count that I have read is 90 plants of Coke and Pepsi all over India, which are draining the groundwater table and selling our water, a resource which belongs to the people of India, and more to the local people, the farmers. They are selling our water to us. I mean, there can be nothing more unscrupulous than this, and unethical than this. I mean, somebody comes to my house, has dinner, and then they charge money. So using our resources and charging money from us, this is outrightly, brazenly, I think, incorrect, and therefore we oppose the commercialization of groundwater, and it is a matter of big concern for the farmers wherever these plants are located. That was one movement in which I was involved directly. I also went to jail along with the people of the area twice. The other movement that I saw closely was the movement to save Ganga. I was not directly involved. One of my mentors, I would say, a former professor at IIT Kanpur, who had a Ph.D. from University of California at Berkeley. He had served with the irrigation department of the UP government. It was part of the engineers team which built the Rihan Dam in Sonbhat district of Uttar Pradesh in the southeast corner, if you look at the UP map. And his chief engineer was awarded Padma Shri because Professor G.D. Agrawal had, for the first time, mixed fly ash with cement to reduce the cost of the dam. Later, he got fed up with the corruption of the irrigation department, went to teach at IIT Kanpur. In between, went to get his PhD from Berkeley, which he completed in 2 years, was directly promoted from an assistant professor to professor, but left IIT also, and then became a sadhu. He was known by the name of Gyan Sarup Sanand. He fasted 5 times during the Manmohan Singh government, and the 6th time in the Narendra Modi government. His demand was, even though he built a dam, but he realized that dams were not good. His simple logic was that if you build a dam on river Ganga, especially in the upper reaches in Uttarakhand, then these dams will stop the flow of water. And Ganga has a self-purifying property, and it has been proved that it is because of a virus called bacteriophage, which flows with the water, that the water is able to clean itself. There is a research institute in Nagpur, a government environmental engineering research institute. They have done comparative study of water from Ganga, Yamuna, and Narmada, and shown that the presence of bacteriophage in Ganga is more than that in Yamuna and Narmada, and that is why the self-cleaning property of Ganga is more than the other rivers. And that is why probably traditionally Ganga has been considered a holy river. I'm sure you would have heard from your parents that the water of Ganga never decays if you keep it in a bottle. Ganga had this property, And I'm saying had because it is no longer there, because the virus flowed with the water and cleaned it. But now, for example, it can kill the bacteria E. coli, which is generated from the human excreta. So Professor Agrawal was saying that don't build dams because building dams would stop the flow of this virus. And he fasted against the hydroelectric projects in Uttarakhand. And it was because of his fast that Manmohan Singh's government, when Jairam Ramesh was the environment minister, they dumped 3 hydroelectric projects, 2 of them which were yet to start, and one Lohari Nagpala which was under construction. 1,000 crores rupees had already been spent, but Manmohan Singh said that preserving environment is more important for us than electricity. And if you ever go from Uttarkashi to Gangotri, you will find an abandoned project on the way, and that project was closed because of Professor G.D. Agrawal's fast. The 5th time he fasted in Manmohan Singh's government, a letter was delivered to him by Mr. Rajnath Singh, the then BJP president. He said, Narendra Modi is coming to power, and once he is the prime minister, we will agree to all your demands. Professor Agrawal waited for 4.5 years after Modi became prime minister, but he realized that this government, even though had allocated a budget of 23,000 crore rupees for Namami Gange, had no intention of cleaning Ganga. They were just involved in construction activity. They were going on building sewage treatment plants and riverfront development. Now, riverfront development has nothing to do with river cleaning. It is an entertainment project. And on the sewage treatment plant, Professor Agrawal used to say that the sewage water should never flow into a river, untreated or treated. I mean, none of the developed countries do that. And that is why if you travel to the west, any of the developed country, you will never find their rivers and lakes and ponds unclean. They are all very clean. And how are they able to do it in spite of, generating more pollution per capita than us? And it is because they don't dirty their water. They use the treated water from sewer somewhere else for watering their lawns or for washing their automobiles or in their flush latrines or wherever. But they don't put it into the rivers. And we still, even today, in Haridwar, in a holy place like Haridwar, sewer water is flowing untreated into Ganga. Because you will never be able to build sewage treatment plants to treat all the sewage that you're generating. By the time you build the sewage treatment plants, according to the design, the urban population would have increased, and you would have more sewer coming in. So you would be chasing an impossible target. So he was not of the view that sewage should be put into river even after treatment. And therefore, he said that all this money being spent on building sewage treatment plants is a waste. It is the responsibility of the municipal corporations, not the central government or the union government, to take care of the sewage water. So anyway, he fasted the 6th time in the Narendra Modi government, wrote 2 letters to the Prime Minister before going on fast in 2018. Prime Minister did not respond. He wrote 2 letters while on fast, and on the 112th day of his fast, he died in the Ames Rishikesh, where he was forcibly taken on the 111th day, even though he was doing fine. I mean, he was not on the verge of dying. At the Matri Sadan Ashram where he was fasting. Matri Sadan Ashram is an amazing ashram. You would have never seen, something like this. There is a bunch of sadhus 7 kilometers from the Haridwar station on the banks of Ganga, on a stream of Ganga, called Matri Sadan, who have organized more than 65 fasts so far to prevent illegal mining in Ganga, in Haridwar itself. So this is where Professor Agrawal was fasting, and he died on the 112th day. And then immediately there was a message tweeted by the Prime Minister expressing condolence on the death of Professor Agrawal. So the man did not respond to the 4 letters of Professor Agarwal, but was condoling his death. And it is a shame that the Manmohan Singh's government did not allow him to die the 5 times he fasted, but the only time he fasted in the Narendra Modi government, he died. It is a big loss because he was a voice of conscience. Even on the day of his death, Mr. Gadkari, who was then also the water resources minister, and I met Professor Agarwal twice during his fast in Haridwar, and he said, I mean, how this is such a contradictory thing. I mean, how can the same man be the river minister and also the highways minister? Because there was a Char Dham project in Uttarakhand which was connecting Gangotri, Yamunotri, and Badrinath and Kedarnath. And if you are building broad highways in hills, then you are cutting the hills, which increases the chances of landslide. So he said, and all the muck is coming into the rivers. Whatever cutting you are doing to build the road, all the muck is coming to the river. So he said, how can the same man be the river minister and the highways minister? If he has to build highways, he will destroy the rivers. So that is what the highways department was doing, and Mr. Gadkari was negotiating with him to release 30% of the natural flow of Ganga in the riverbed. And there was a report by an IIT consortium. This was the official committee set up by the Manmohan Singh government of professors from IIT, different IITs, was chaired by Professor Vinod Tare of IIT Kanpur. And this committee had come up with recommendations of how much flow in Ganga should be there at various points, upstream and downstream of various dams. Overall, it was suggesting about 50% flow of the natural flow in Ganga if you wanted the property of self-cleaning of Ganga to remain. However, Mr. Gadkari was not agreeable to this official report position and was arguing for a 30% release, because there was pressure from the companies which were managing the dams, who were producing electricity. They did not want to release too much water. They wanted to hold all the water back so that they could produce more electricity. And they were not willing to release more than 30% of the natural flow. Whereas the IIT consortium wanted 50% of natural flow, which is what Professor Agarwal was insisting on. On his last day, Gadkari was negotiating with Professor Agarwal over phone. He said, we will let 30% of the water flow. Professor Agarwal said, no way, we want 50%. And that was his last negotiation with the government. And then he died. So that is the sad story of a person, who was a great scientist, engineer. He also served as the member secretary of Central Pollution Control Board. In fact, he has set up norms which are still being used by the Environment Ministry and the pollution control departments. But unfortunately, a government which claims, to be protecting the interests of the Hindus, allowed a Hindu sadhu to die when he was on a mission to protect the most holy river considered by the Hindus, the Ganga. The Prime Minister, when he went to contest election from Varanasi for the first time, he claimed that Mother Ganga had called him to Varanasi to contest election. So this is the hypocrisy, that you see, and this government is just interested in making money out of all its projects, whether it is Clean Ganga, whether it is Swachh Bharat Mission or whatever, and they are least bothered about the people's interests. So that is where I will stop, because I think I have already taken 20 minutes and will open it up for interaction.
So you can ask your question. Now the floor is yours. Introduce yourself, and you can give your comment also. You can ask some question. Maybe you have any doubt. Sir has got science background, so he is not like me, social science.
Yeah, but I have forgotten all my science.
So for you, I want to just add this information. Sandeep Pandey ji has studied at IIT BHU, and then his PhD is from Berkeley, California University, in mechanical engineering. So you know him better. I am from humanities and social science. So if you have any question, you can ask.
Good evening, sir. My name is Padmakshi.
Yeah, Padma.
Um, First of all, I would really like to thank you for being here with us today and taking out your precious time and sharing such immense experiences from your life with all of us. I think it has been very insightful and actually getting to hear how things actually are in reality. Because in our classrooms, we are always reading from textbooks and from slides and PPTs, looking at a very rosy picture and not really being able to understand the grays which are there in between the things which we study. Because everything seems like as if it's black and white in the class. So listening to your experiences really shows that gray area, that huge gray area which is there with so many different shades of all the things which happen. So my question to you is that how can we as students who are actually studying sustainable development and the subjects which we are studying right now are so intricately linked with the challenges which you just mentioned, so how can we as students come into the picture, step up and make a difference? What are the things which we should keep in mind before, you know, getting going to the field and doing taking up different projects if we want to aid in conservation and sustainable development while also keeping in mind the rights of the marginalized? So that is my question.
Yeah. So, as you yourself said, Padmakshi, there is only one side of the story that you get to hear in the classroom. And to get to know the other side, I think you have to consciously read material which is all there in the public domain. You know, there are various organizations like Center for Science and Environment in Delhi. There is my friend Leo Saldhana in Bangalore. There is Ashish Kothari. You know, these people continuously, keep writing, producing reports, which will give you the real picture on the ground. And then you have to also, I think, be in touch with for that you will have to make a special effort. I mean, all the literature, from the other side, which will tell you how, we are causing damage to our environment is widely available on the net. And if you search, you will be able to find. But to come to know about the rights of the marginalized people, affected by development projects, I think you'll have to make an extra conscious effort to reach out to the grassroots activists or the movements. So, try to connect with movements. For example, the movement against big dams, the movement against, power plants, the movement against the big highways, any of the movements of the farmers, of the tribals, which are going on. Most of these movements would be to protect their immediate lives and livelihoods, but they also have ecological implications. So that you will have to make an extra effort. Just like you are getting a chance to interact with me, I think in your class you should invite more speakers, who are involved in grassroots movements to protect not just the environment, but the rights of the common people, the life and the livelihood. Yeah.
Definitely, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yes. Some more question?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm Lagnajit Tripathi. So I have
Lagna.
a question that has been there any try for the process of bioremediation in the Clean Ganga project?
For what? Effort for what?
Effort on bioremediation in Clean Ganga project.
Bioremediation.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by that?
That means so the pollutants such as heavy metals and other hazardous substances,
to get
they
rid
can
of them.
be, yes, sir, they can get rid of we can get rid of that through microorganisms, fungi and plants, etc. So has been there any try for to use this technique, and is it a success or it's a failure?
Not that I know of. I mean, the only thing that has been done so far is uh, construction of sewage treatment plants, and
Okay,
then
sir.
there have been efforts like ban on fish catching fish between Allahabad and Varanasi, or between Kanpur or Allahabad. Because fish also have a role in cleaning up the water.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there have been some efforts like that, but nothing substantial, nothing which would change the quality of water, qualitatively. I don't know of any such effort. I mean, in spite of all the efforts which are going on, the construction activity around Ganga, and also now this government is obsessed with using waterways, as a means of transportation. And as
Yes,
you know, in Varanasi now there are big ships, replacing the small boats. Now the small boats which were used by the fisher folk are being replaced by trawlers. So that obviously, is more damaging for the river. But unfortunately, as I said, this government is interested more in making money from the Ganga than protecting Ganga. So no, nothing that I know which would have changed the quality of water, substantially.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Some more question?
I wanted to just add to that and say that our, sir, Mr. Abhay Kumar always brings in great, readings of great personalities. Right
Yeah.
now we are reading Vandana Shiva. Last week we were discussing, thinkings of Mr. James Scott. So that is something that we are definitely being exposed for with after a long time. But my question to you would be, I wanted to know your thoughts on the question of development versus welfare. Right, there is no question of no doubt about it that when we talk about development, right, it's always economical. It's always measured in numbers. It's rarely, discussed in terms of the welfare of the marginalized person. So, right. So, for example, in case of a dam only, when somebody says कि यहाँ पे dam बनेगा, तो people are like, yes, it will benefit the economy. It'll be very helpful for development, but rarely people think about the marginalized. So, how do you tackle that argument? Ki, okay, it will be good for development, but what about the marginalized?
No, I think while the Narmada Bachao Andolan was at its peak, there was a commission set up by the World Bank called the World Commission on Dams, in which Medha Patkar and L.C. Jain were members from India, and the South African Water Resources Minister was chairing it. This commission had clearly come out with a report that big dams should not be built. And after that, the World Bank has taken a position that it will not fund big dams anywhere in the world. So I think there is a general consensus now that big dams should not be built because they are damaging to the environment, and we should find alternative ways of generating electricity and for irrigation. So I think essentially we are moving towards a paradigm where people realize that you are overusing the resources. For example, at this time, the waste that we are generating, the pollution that we are causing, requires 1.7 times the size of the earth, to absorb.
Right.
I mean, the nature has a capacity. I mean, you release carbon dioxide and it is absorbed by the trees. But the amount of carbon dioxide that we are generating at this point requires 1.7 times the earth to absorb. So we cannot cross the carrying capacity of the earth. So one thing that is what we have to keep in mind, that the development should be sustainable. I mean, we should be able to sustain what we are doing and not overuse the resources. And the second is that the benefits of the development should be equitably distributed. Unfortunately, the economic policies that we are following are increasing the gap between the rich and the poor. So the development should be, the nature of the development should be such that it is more decentralized, because bigger the project, the more centralized the benefits will go to. So if you have, for example, instead of a big dam, you have a smaller solar energy projects, then the chances of equitable distribution are better. So that is what I think we have to aim for. Number one, that we don't go beyond the carrying capacity of the earth, and second, that whatever we are doing in the name of development is equitably, the benefits are equitably distributed. Slowly we will have to reach that position, in order to become sustainable. Otherwise, the kind of development that is going on at present is not sustainable. And once you have a sustainable model of development, which also makes sure that the benefits are equitably distributed, then I think it would be more democratic, and it would be, the concept of Gram Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi is the kind of ideal that we should aim towards. He believed in this thing that local resources should be used and the local economy should be self-sufficient and things like that. So we have to move towards that kind of position.
More question?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. I am Anshika. So my question is, yes, we are talking about sustainable development, but it does require a lot of changes at policy level also. So according to you, how does our policy is keeping up with the idea of sustainable development and environmental conservation, and what are the activities which are going for promoting such policy making?
No, right now it is not happening. Even though Government of India has declared that it will, India will become carbon neutral by 2070. Europe and Japan have set a target of 2050. We are increasing our dependence on coal, which is the biggest culprit when it comes to carbon emission. So the government is saying one thing and doing quite the opposite. Thinking of the government is best reflected in an interview by Montek Singh Ahluwalia in the last government, where he, in Indian Express, where he was arguing that the United States produces 9 times the pollution per capita than India. Mm-hmm. And how can we put a curb on carbon emission? Because unless we produce that kind of pollution, we would not have developed to the level of the developed countries. So I mean, indirectly he was saying that we will first pollute as much as the US and the developed countries have done, and then we will think of putting a curb on our carbon emission. This, I think, is an insane thinking. I mean, the Western world has already destroyed the environment quite a lot, and I think a responsible position would be to check our pollution, our carbon emission, and also force the developed countries to change their lifestyles. A lot of people are realizing this, but only at an individual level. For example, Greta Thunberg, the young girl who's leading the movement from Europe, she has decided not to use air travel. convinced her mother too. And because of their decision, the air travel in Europe has gone down, and train travel has picked up. So we are forced to move in that direction, where we will have to give up, the luxuries and the comforts which the modern development has made available. In fact, my party, which likes to call itself the Green Party of India, has a green manifesto which says that all motorized private transportation should be banned. There should be public transportation, good, like you have the local trains in Bombay. So if we want, we can do it. We have examples from this country itself. Bombay like to travel by local train. They don't keep their personal private cars. Only very rich will have cars, compared to normal middle class families in Indian cities. So good public transportation system, even in government departments. I don't see why, except for the health department and the police, why other departments need vehicles. There should be a taxi service, of course, for emergency, for old, for physically challenged, and people can use bicycles, and everybody should just use public transportation. So we will have to change our policies in that direction, and stop using less of cement as a material of construction. Cement is another big culprit, when it comes to carbon emission. We'll have to find more sustainable ways of building. There have been various architects in this country, the most famous one being Laurie Baker in Kerala, who has demonstrated building technology which uses less of cement and the baked bricks. So we are bound to move in that direction, sooner or later.
One more point which I would like to add
Yeah.
to whatever you just summarized is that I believe it's also about what the governments want to prioritize. And at this point, sustainability as such is not a very big priority for our country.
Yeah.
So when we look at things from the perspective of prioritizing things, so development takes the topmost priority. And we all know that when it comes to rampant development, all other things take up a huge backseat. And just trying to convince the people who are so in for all the development, which they think will bring in a lot of benefits to them, but which in the long run end up harming them more than whatever good it has done. So I think that is something that far-sightedness is what is that the government is lacking right now. So like a very prominent example of this we can see if we take the example of the Green Revolution, right? So like back in time, back when India really needed the food grains because we were facing a food shortage, the Green Revolution was almost seen as the only answer to solving our food insecurity problems. But in the long run, we are seeing the repercussions of Green Revolution right now. When we look at the dire condition of the farmers in Punjab who are suffering from problems of acute groundwater shortage. And it's very ironical to think that a state like Punjab is growing a crop like rice, which needs tons of water. And to top it off, all the genetically modified seed varieties as well, which are being used, which in the long run are so unsustainable because they are in the name of increasing the yield, they're not really doing anything. All these genetically modified seeds, the subsidies, price supports, fertilizers, they're all just being distributed to maximize production. So agriculture in Punjab has essentially become industrial productivist in nature. It is no longer agriculture. It is no longer just growing food, right? It is becoming more and more of an industry where we are just looking at crops as sources of earning money, revenue, profit, instead of actually looking at the sheer problem of feeding the people of the country. So I think when we look at examples as stark as that, the Green Revolution, and then also the other examples such as hydro project development activities, thermal power plants, that is where we start seeing that sustainability is not really a priority of our country. So that is one thing which I wanted to add.
Yeah. No, you are right, Padmakshi. Actually, since the economic policies of privatization, liberalization, and globalization have been implemented in 1991, increasingly the governments have followed capitalist policies. That these capitalists, they fund the political parties, and therefore these political parties are forced to take decisions which are in the interest of these corporations. And obviously, if you're going for that kind of development where big contracts are being given to capitalists, then obviously you're going to destroy the environment. So there is no hope until this kind of a stranglehold of capitalism is there, on our economy. And it is also because of the affluent lifestyle of people, which is causing problem. So I don't have any hope of these policies changing until the nature of the politics changes. I mean, we have to remind people that the Indian Constitution says that India is a socialist country. It is not yet a capitalist country. The first line of the Constitution says that India is a secular, socialist, democratic republic, sovereign. So how can you have blatantly capitalist policies? So that is one thing. And second is so there's a need for more people to articulate this so that the policies change. They, rather than serving the interests of the capitalists, they serve the interests of the common people. For example, if you were I have lived in the United States for 6 years, and when I returned to India in 92, I was shocked to find several things. First of all, when I had left India, I studied at BHU. There was one central computer on the entire campus. Everybody had to go with their programs, and this computer would run their program, and people would get their outputs. Now every home has a computer. You are building highways which are not meant for the common people of this country. These highways and expressways, and some of them explicitly say that two-wheelers and non-motorized vehicles are not permitted. For example, Delhi-Jaipur highway. Now tell me, what is the means of transportation which the common citizen of this country uses? Is that a four-wheel vehicle? You are building a system of highways and expressways on which only four-wheel vehicles can ply. So this is for the benefit of the car manufacturing companies and the petroleum companies. It is not for the benefit of the common person of this country. If you were planning according to the interest of the common persons, you would be building more railways, which is still the cheapest mode of transportation. Even bus travel costs 3 to 4 times than railways. So you would have been laying down more railway lines instead of making these highways. And the other aspect is, which I have already mentioned, the decision at the personal level, which I think everybody has to take, so that we have less of carbon footprints. Like Greta Thunberg has taken a decision. So we have a campaign on behalf of the Socialist Party that people should take in decisions in their individual lives. And various people have done various things. One of my friends in Bangalore has taken a decision not to fly within the country. He always takes train. One of my cousins has not renewed his driving license, so that he is not tempted to drive a vehicle. He uses public transportation or bicycle. One of the students in my last class at IIM Ahmedabad, I teach a course on social movements at IIM Ahmedabad. I have been doing it for 6 years now. And when this session on environment movement comes up, at the end of it, I say the same thing which I am telling you, that please make a personal commitment. And one of the students in my class after reading about the water conservation movement, decided to take bath using a bucket instead of shower. So if you are using shower, then there's a tendency to use more water. But if you fill a bucket, and I always think when it comes to using water, that hand pump was a better means of getting water than these tap water, because in hand pump you have to make an effort to take the water out, and you will take only that much water out that you need. But if you have a tap, I have often seen that people will open the taps and then will leave it, and then the water will overflow. Such a situation will never happen with a hand pump, because as soon as the bucket is full, you will stop. So I was happy that one of my students, said that he would now take bath using a bucket rather than shower. So small steps like this, I think will raise consciousness among people, but that is not enough. I mean, policy level changes are required, and some of you will I'm sure be going into positions where you will be able to influence policy making. So please do that if you get an opportunity.
So if you have any question, hello, anybody has question?
Yeah, and no need to say that you are free to interact with me. My email address has already been shared by Professor Abhay Kumar. I don't keep a mobile, not for environmental reasons, just for the sake of keeping my life easy. So use my email to interact. I will also share some articles with Abhay Kumar, and he will share it with you. So feel free to interact even in future.
So who will come up to give vote of thanks? Anybody can volunteer? Who is the right person?
All of them are right persons. Yeah, they don't need to thank me. I mean, the biggest thank you will be when you take a decision in your life, so that you leave less,
Prashant, you can do it. Prashant, you can do it.
less carbon footprints.
Prashant, you can do it.
I just wanted to sort of add a remark or make, pose another question. When we say we will, at a personal level, will make changes in our lifestyle, say, as you just gave an example, we should not be flying short distances, we should not be driving so much of private vehicles. But there is this, there is this there is this hopelessness that comes in when you look around, right? Especially when you look at the developed world, and you see that at on one hand you're like recycling, and you're using less fuel, you're not flying short distances, you're doing everything under the sun that you can do to be sustainable. But when you look at others, when you look at people taking 45 minute flights, and also it is becoming inevitable in the sense that we are moving towards that model in India as well, right? I read about we are making airports so that we can have flights that are like 30 to 45 minutes long, which can very easily be bypassed done by road. And we actually read this national urban transport policy. We had this in arts level, and we saw that there has been an increase in accidents in pedestrians, right? Our roads have become more hostile to more eco-friendly means of transport. So in this setting where we're moving towards what we see in a developed nation, how do we keep doing what we should do in an ideal world, given that even our government or the structure that we are following is not caring for that?
See, Prashant, the change makers, the people who want to bring change in the society, their numbers are always less, right? Imagine the time when British were ruling India. Do you think everybody was part of the freedom movement? My own grandfather was serving the British. He was a Naib Tehsildar. He was not part of the movement. I mean, his brothers and his nephew were participating in the freedom movement. But most of the people were going along with the British rule. Right? Even now, you will see people, old people, who will say the British rule was better than the rulers, the present rulers. Right? So most of the society was not for change. It was a handful of people until Gandhi arrived on the scene. It was not a mass movement. And imagine the number of youth who have laid down their lives. You have Khudiram Bose from the age of 18 to Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi at the age of 41. And in between you have Ashfaqullah Khan and Bhagat Singh and all these people, Chandrasekhar Azad, who gave up their life because they wanted the country to become independent. I mean, we are not asking you to make sacrifices of that kind. We are just asking that don't use AC. AC, 35% of the electricity in Bombay is consumed by AC. So try to adjust or kind of condition yourself so that you can live without AC. So that is not a very big sacrifice that we are asking. Just do a little bit, whatever you can, whatever is comfortably possible for you. And I think this thing that pedestrians and cyclists, they are vulnerable is wrong. I have been cycling in the city of Lucknow for I can cycle up to, or I have an old bike because 3 of my bikes got stolen. So I bought an old bike and then got all the moving parts, replaced. And I use that bike. I can cover up to 26 kilometers per day, right? Initially, I fell, 1 or 2 times when suddenly a scooter would, make a turn in front of my bike. But now I have got used to it. And even in the worst of the traffic, I am able to negotiate. I don't have any problem. And I see that the people who are, using motorized vehicles, they are careful of you. They are careful that, somebody is driving a bicycle and they should not hit him. In fact, in January and February, I was at Nalsar, Hyderabad, teaching law students. And there the Nalsar campus is 33 kilometers outside the city. I got a very nice, sleek sports bicycle. And I did, I went to the city and came back, which means 66 kilometers, several times. And there I saw that several times people would do thumbs up to me when they would see that I was going on a bike. And when one auto rickshaw wala came up to me and he said, see, my age is only 58, but because of my gray hair, people think that I am older. So I overtook a auto rickshaw wala on my bike because I was on a slope down. And he came up to me and he said, at this age, you are overtaking me on a bicycle. So I told him, I am not as old as you think. But, people appreciate the fact that you are using a bicycle. So this is a myth that it is not safe. I think it is still safe. And accidents can happen anywhere. I mean, even if you are flying in an aircraft, accident can happen. A train accident has happened in Bihar, recently. So don't worry about these things. I think the people who wish to change, they should demonstrate their strong will. They have to bring about whatever changes from a personal level to articulate, changes at a macro level, and they have to do their work. I mean, you can't be overwhelmed by what is going on around you. If that was the case, this country would have not become independent. I mean, most of the people at that time were going along with the British rule. So, there were people who were working with the British. In fact, the religious fundamentalists on both sides, Hindus and Muslims, were they were not fighting against the British. They were supporting the British. It was only a handful of revolutionaries, and then the mass movement, which was built up by Gandhi, that ultimately got rid of the British rule. So it is Greta Thunberg, when she started her protest. Do you know that she was sitting alone on the steps of the Swedish Parliament? It was only gradually that students started joining her, and then Fridays for Future became a big movement. So somebody somewhere has to take a step, and then hopefully the society will come along. And even if you are small in numbers, you have to do what is correct. You can't be just overwhelmed by what is going on around.
Thank you very much. Let me first thank my students, because they have given me energy, and they have promised that they will join in great number. They have, sir, joined. They have asked very important question. And I always believe that books are not going to tell you everything. You have to meet people who are working in the field. Books are also important, but people who are working, we should always have interaction with them. Sir, Sandeep Pandey ji, sir, thank you very much. And I have also shared your email ID. So
Yeah.
now you become friends with my student. You need not need my help. So
Yeah.
we hope that we all work together for reconstructing society, for making the world greener. Thank you very much, sir.
And let me end on this note that when I went, because there are a lot of young ladies also in this audience, when I went to jail for the first time in Narmada Bachao Andolan, you can see my wife now sitting here. She just came back. She was in the Narmada Bachao Andolan for 10 years. And what was my first jail visit in Dhulia district in Maharashtra was her 55th. She was a student of social work at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She decided to join the movement, and we went to jail, and then we got married. So good things can also come out of your activism.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
That's amazing, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
so much, sir.